Even though the theme for today is when things fall apart, which sort of seems like bad news normally at first, uh, we're going to start with a terrific amount of good news. The biggest news flash is you are a soul. You don't have a soul, you are a soul. And as we've been developing this vocabulary of soul, realize that a human being is a kind of hybrid a creature, both human and divine, and that divine part is a soul. It's a part that's not touched by time. It goes on, and that is it's good news. And you also have all kinds of resources that aren't apparent and that we don't really know about. Um, this was a gift to me by it's a braided sweetgrass. It was a gift to me after we talked about this concept of braided sweetgrass, the Native American custom. But today that could be an image for today, because today we're going to braid together six different practices uh, for working with your life when things fall apart. We already started with one essential one, which is mindful breathing. Because when things fall apart, uh, we don't. The tendency is to hold your breath. Some of us have been living for decades like that. It's not good, and it's not helpful, and everything tenses up when you hold your breath. And so what we did, if you missed the first part, I did our first meditation practice as a kind of mindfulness of breath to soothe the body. Okay, and that's sometimes the first and best thing you can do, especially if there's nobody else around when this happens or nobody to talk to. It's jagged, it's ripped, it's torn. I mean, you just imagine if you're either Israeli or Palestinian with what's going on now. It doesn't matter. Uh, Things are torn, uh, lives are lost, uh, relatives, friends, hostages, all this kind of stuff that's going on, and it just takes your breath away. Well, one of the best things you could do at first is to remember that the breath is an ally, and if you're not breathing, uh, uh, you're I'm just trying to let in a few people who are coming here. If you're not breathing, you don't have the one resource that you really need, which is breath. Oh, breathing life. You know, that's a great resource. So that's why we did the soothing breathing to start, and we're going to add in this 45-minute talk. We'll add five more uh, tools, five more practices, really. Uh, and so you can't have enough, and then you'll find your own, as you live, as you live. But you are a soul, and you don't have one. You are one, and the soul is contains the body, the mind, the heart, the ego, which comes out of the mental consciousness, the ego, the personality, the roles you play, every moment you live. The soul contains all that. It is all that. The soul is the totality of who you are, and it's much stronger than just the ego or a personality or a role. You can lose any of those. You lose your mind. You could lose the mental process of talking or recognizing people. That all happens. We know. There's many ways that things fall apart, and then what you do, and so that's what we're talking about today. Uh, a poem from the past. This came out of a time that I took my parents in. Pam and I took mom and dad in, and things fell apart many times during that 7 years. This poem came from that period. It's called Blizzard. When farmers in the Great Plains smelled a blizzard coming, they would run a stout rope from the farmhouse to the barn. Grievous experience had taught them how easy it was to wander off in a whiteout and freeze to death. The Eskimo have over 50 words for snow. They know that blizzards come flying every which way, financially, emotionally, spiritually. What is the rope strung between your kitchen door and the barn? Between the life you're living and your soul's deepest desire? Find out before it's too late. Find out. Everything depends on it. What is that rope? You know, if you're lucky, you've got a steel cable, you know, that you can, and it's a true experience. You know, they're going out to the barn to feed the animals, and somehow, people were found frozen, 10 feet away from the back door. They couldn't even see the back door to the house. That's how it's like when things come, when things fall apart. And so we're trying to gather practices for that time. And it's not a one-time event. Any of you guys who have lived as long as I have know that things fall apart on some kind of regular basis. Okay, and so we're going to look into that. And the first two big strands that we can weave together that can help you deal with this will be. I'm going to put up a screensaver of it, and I call it the mandala and the mantra. If you don't have a mantra, you should get one. And if you don't understand mandalas, these forms of their maps, I'm going to show you one. And some of you have seen versions of this before, so I need to go to my screensaver here, and we'll get the mandala up. No, wrong one. Hello, guys. Blessings to you. That one. I'm going to have to trigger this a little bit. It's already always a little tricky to do the media here. Let's try this. Try it again. Huh. Oh man, it does not want to go. I don't know where it's coming from. There we go. Can you see that, mandala? I hope so. All right.
No.
Oh no. Okay, just me that's seeing it. All right. Thank you for that. Let me try again.
But it was up there for a second.
Was it? Yeah. All right. That's what I have to figure out here. Bear with me here. All right. Let me try it one more time. Otherwise, we'll go on to plan B. Talk about when things fall apart. You have to be ready for plan B or C. Let's see if we can do it. Oh, man. All right, let's try. Yeah. Okay. This is a mandala I have right on my floor here. And the mandala is something that all people have done. If we find mandalas on cave walls, in a way, the primitive forms of them, but this is mandala is a way of squaring the circle, as they say, circling the square. They're both circles and squares, and I don't know if this actually appears on your, this pointer actually appears, but let's see if I can get it. This is a combination Tibetan and Aramaic mandala, The Tibetans are famous for making these mandalas out of sand and then throwing all the sand, the colored sand, throwing the sand in the river. But this is one that it's a variation on the one I normally have in the middle of my zendo. And so we'll sort of go around it, and we'll both. A mandala is how you it's how you navigate sacred time, kairos, which is the same as saying eternal time. So this is a model of eternal time, how eternity moves, and of course time moves in it. But so I want to run around this a little bit, and the and it also contains the mantra. It's the was probably a mantra for Jesus, is my guess. It's the first word of what became the prayer of Jesus, or what became known as the Lord's Prayer hundreds of years later. But uh, the what we call the Lord's Prayer, which we mash all together, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. You know, especially if you say the rosary at a Catholic wake, it goes about at that speed. We sort of put it all together, but it came out of the experience of things falling apart. They were entering Jerusalem and, uh, going into not only the heart of the Jewish temple system, which was opposed to everything they were doing, but Jesus and his buddies, the apostles, but also the heart, where the Roman power was there. They were an occupied country. Jesus was a Palestinian Jew born in occupied country. Bethlehem is in the West Bank. So he knew the exact reality that's been going on all over the world for a lot of times. You live in a land occupied by some other power. Jesus was no stranger to that. So as they were going into this, they knew a conflict was coming. They said, been around Jesus for a year and a half or 2 years, maybe max. And they said, couldn't you boil down all these parables or whatever? They sort of felt like they're going to be fending for themselves. Little did they know how quick that would happen, how things would fall apart. And so Jesus gave them a series of teachings. I contend, since I worked with the prayer of Jesus, the Lord's Prayer, for probably about 9 months, trying to render the Aramaic version of it into English, I saw it as 8 teachings how to get through the day. And so the first teaching in the Aramaic is Avun Devashmaya, and that was a teaching, as was every other, the rest of the other 7 were all. He gave them like a braid of 8 teachings how to get through the day. And that first word of the first teaching, Avun, you see on the mandala here, going clockwise from the very bottom of it, with the A. That's that word, and these are really 4 letters. Avun is in 4 Aramaic letters. Aramaic reads right to left, by the way, like Hebrew, like Arabic. And Ah represents the Holy One. It represents the Creator. It represents the force of creation. Okay, and so he starts with that letter, with the invoking that. When you go Vun, when you start, he starts with the start. I mean, what was before the Big Bang? No scientist or astrophysicist can really tell you. And this is what was before the Big Bang, from Jesus' view and the Semitic view, even the Hebrew, even the Hindu view. They have a different mantra, but that's the beginning, and it is also the fullness. Okay. And then the next letter in English, it's BW, and that's very interesting. It goes That's how you would pronounce it or chant it. We're gonna listen to people chant it as we enter meditation. We'll use the mantra. Mantras can be used in meditation when things fall apart. But that BW, there's can't get it in one letter in English, so we have this BW. It's called the blend of sounds. But notice it's a vibratory experience. It's in vibration. It breaks down things. they use sound to even break down gallstones and stuff. It's a vibratory thing. When I used to ride with Father Raymond in Haiti, he had an old Land Rover, and the entire dashboard was uh, was held together by clear packing tape because in Haiti the roads are so rough and the potholes are so many that he was just holding it together because this vibratory thing when you hit a pothole at 30 kilometers an hour and you go up and you hit the rough, and so there's that element there. That's when things fall apart. They vibrate, and every creative thing, I don't care what it is, including that part of us that was created, the body, the mind, the circulatory system, all that falls apart at some point. That's serious falling apart. And then there's all other things, but there's a fullness, then it falls apart, and then the third stop on the wheel of eternity is the emptiness. Okay, after things fall apart, after your spouse dies, after you lose your job, even after you retire from your job of 30 years, you're very successful. Now there's no 9 to 5. There's all of a sudden there's a big emptiness there. Not surprising. Waiting all my life to retire, and now I retired, and I've got plenty of money and a house and good health. But then there's this emptiness. It always follows when things fall apart, and then when you go over to the end, something new comes out. Something new comes out, and if you look at this mandala, you can see a time and eternity laid out here. And then the new thing will become mature and full, and then it will fall apart, and then there will be the emptiness. Interesting, the emptiness, the ooh, looks like that in the Aramaic letter. It's a circle and a sound of ooh, and it's like an exhale. It's an emptiness. The circle is the center is empty. And then something new comes out. If you keep going around, if you pay attention to life, that happens. But most, whoops, lost something here. I don't know if you lost it, but I did. I don't even know where this came from.
A message came up for me that said Cheryl started screen saving.
Oh, okay. Are you seeing the mandala?
I'm seeing Cheryl's screen.
Oh, all right. That's not it. How do I even get out of this? Let me try this.
If Cheryl can stop screen sharing.
Yes, maybe that would do it. I'll try to get back. I think I've even lost, maybe she's doing it because I lost mine. Here we are. Let's try it again. See if we can bring it back. Is it back? For you guys? I think so. Okay, good.
Yes.
So to look at this gives you a map of every moment, really. Starting with let's start with the end. And by the way, this is arranged in my Zendo as it would be arranged if the Tibetans did it, with that the new thing is pointed to the east, and then the fullness is in the south, and then the falling apart happens in the autumn, and then the emptiness is into winter. They would organize it in terms of the seasons because they do follow like that. And so when you get to when something new comes out, that's spring. That's spring. Something springs up out of the death of winter, out of the emptiness of winter, things spring up, and then they grow to fullness, and then they fall apart in autumn, and then you get back. So that is the seasons, how the seasons go. And if you go back to the end, this is the directions, east, and then south, west, and then north. And then if you go for the times of the day, the new thing is daybreak. The fullness is noon. Things start to fall apart at twilight, and then the emptiness is at midnight. And you could go with phases of the moon. It just is. It's reflecting how we know the cosmos goes. Everything from a day to a breath. Yeah. So think about a breath. Starts at the end. You breathe in, and then you get to the fullness, and then it starts to breathe out until you're absolutely empty of breath. Then it comes back, new breath, fullness, and then the exhale. The breath is sort of just falling apart, falling out until you're totally empty. So it's in every breath, it's in every moment. It's capturing both what it's like to be alive in a body and breathe. We know that blood cells are being created and then they die and are excreted all the time. And this is just the rhythm. Okay. Now our problem is when things fall apart. That's where we have in our mind that everything's going to go on forever in a straight line, just the way we think. I mean, even today, maybe, things happen. All of a sudden your screen disappears, et cetera, et cetera. And you just have to be calm about it because these things happen. But at this point, the BW plan, one Enneagram guy says that's the source of all addictions. That point, the pain of seeing something fall apart, a dream, a marriage. These things come from every different way. Your own body, you get ill. Maybe it's a serious illness. It is a kind of falling apart. And it's like the ground under your feet is no longer there. Okay. Now, at that point, what do? See, if you have some practices, and I'm going to give you 6, this is one of them, just to have a map to know, hey, this happens to everybody, and it happens throughout a whole life. Okay? And it's nothing you did wrong. This is a kind of cosmic phenomenon. Stars are born at they're new stars, then they become full stars, then they start to burn out, and then finally they implode at the emptiness thing. They become a black hole. We know this about stars. That's the vast order even in the cosmos, and we're just part of that rhythm. But when it falls apart, we try to basically do something to keep it together. That's a mistake. But it's what the ego wants to do, because what falls apart might be your personality, might be the role you're playing, might be everything you dreamed about, might be financial security, might be your country falling apart. You got to remember, every empire has fallen apart. Every one of them. Didn't mean they were bad. It just means it's just like everything has an expiration date. Everything does, including, I'm 73 years into this. My expiration date's obviously, I'm well beyond I'm not going to live to be 146, so I'm well beyond the halftime there. And I'm in the 4th quarter of this game, and it's just normal with all the things that happen as the body ages. See, but at the BW point is where we try to get out of the whole thing, and the mind tries to figure a way out. The second time my marriage fell apart, when a relationship like that, a marriage falls apart, it's for me, it was one of the hardest things I've ever been through, even harder than having my parents die in my house, which is, I wouldn't recommend it. It turned out great, but during the time it was awful. But when my marriage fell apart, it just basically, and I owe this to my wife, she just got tired of duct taping it together. And, she finally just sat down, and we had a ex cathedra moment. We had a come to Jesus moment at that point. And that was rough, and there was a lot of pain. And so if you know that this just happens and then you can keep going. Now, how do you keep going when things are so painful? Rather than turn into drugs, alcohol, run away, pretend it's not happening. We have all these mental coping actions, but how do you just keep going? Well, if you see the next station, which is the emptiness, the two the two O's is like you've got to breathe your way through it. That's why I started with mindfulness of breathing. You got to stop. That's the first way. You have to breathe. You have to take in life, and get rid of all the destruction. Tonglen is that practice too. You already know that. That's a main practice during this time, to breathe in all the destruction and all the violence and all the whatever, and then transform it. Breathe out. Yeah. But it's really hard to breathe. We hold our breath and try to figure a way out of it at that BW place. And so to have a map like this and know this happens, that this emptiness phase is also a grief phase. Grief is dealing with the emptiness, and it's the most common human experience, yet we have not like 1 minute of educational instruction on grief. The fact that, little kids say, some little kids know that because maybe they've lost a parent one way or another, but they don't know what to do with it. They haven't been told there's nothing wrong with them. And you can get through this if you keep breathing. You can get to something new. So you can imagine if you held your breath, which is what you tend to do at the BW place. If you held your breath, you just you don't get to anything new. You won't be around if you hold your breath totally in a physical sense. So we've got to learn how to breathe through these things, which is why I started with mindfulness of breathing. It's why Thich Nhat Hanh talked about it and taught about it for his whole life, because it was so foundational, just the breathing. But to know that this map and that something new will come out of the worst tragedy. Now go around this again from, let's start with the A. If you were raised any kind of Christian thing, the Triduum, during a Holy Week. I mean, Jesus wasn't a 4 on the Enneagram. He was a drama king. And so we go through the drama every year until after a while you start to get it, that this is your story too. So Holy Thursday, fullness of the teachings, it all comes together, and if you read the Gospel of John, he does the whole teaching in a night, the discourse, it's all about love, et cetera, et cetera. And then they just walk out to the Olive Garden to pray on Thursday night, and it all starts to fall apart. Not only the disciples, Jesus said, hey, I'm going to go over here and get serious with some meditation, but help me out. You guys stay awake too. Let's all pray together. Well, they all fall asleep. That's all right. And then Romans come and, gets betrayed. And then, it gets worse. Good Friday. I remember asking a Dominican sister, why do they call this Good Friday? It seems like it's Bad Friday to me. And Dominican sisters were trained to just say, well, I don't know, Joseph, that's a great mystery. Well, this is the great mystery here. And she was right. And so then you have the emptiness of Holy Saturday there. Nothing happens on Holy Saturday liturgically. They open in Catholic Church, they open the tabernacle and take the body of Christ out of it, and they strip the altars. And then the next day, boom, something new. Jesus went and Christ was born. Christ is not his last name, which I thought it was actually when I was little. No, it's the new thing that wasn't there, and it had to go through this process. And then, 50 days later, you get the fullness, you get the Pentecost. And then it all keeps going around. So this is a map. So you got a map. That's the mandala. And to remember especially you need this map when things are falling apart. Get to know there's nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with the world. It's just the cycle, the cycle of eternal time. It's a mysterious cycle. Why does it have to be this way? Well, so you could ask that question until the cows come home. It won't do yourself any good. All right, now within this, you have a mantra. I often, before the session starts, Sundays or this session, if I'm here by myself and, screw my pictures off, I'm just letting people in. I'll just be chanting it. Breathe. When I can't chant it, if you're in the doctor's office or something, so I'll just breathe it. I'll breathe in the ah, breathe out the vu, and just time it with my breath. Now, we'll get some practice of that in the second meditation thing. I'll actually put in 5 minutes of group chanting that. And you can just breathe with it. You can just breathe with it. Breathe in with the ah and out with the vu. And just to see, it's another way of moving down out of the mind, which is not capable of dealing with things as they fall apart. It's mental duct tape, but it won't work. See, so there's that mantra. You may have a mantra of your own that you go to when you really need to somehow find ground. That reminds me of this mandala. It reminds me how everything moves, so I get in accord with it. And it's a heart mantra. It comes to the heart. So that's the mandala. That's the mantra. Just quickly, and then I want to move to there we go. Yeah, I want to move to another level. This is a poem I wrote that's called When Things Fall Apart, and it'll give us an idea of how we can bring in 3 more practices. This is called When Things Fall Apart, and it's a kind of soulful 3-question recovery program. So the first 3 stanzas go like this. When things really fall apart on an existential level, the egoic mind reacts. Thankfully, our soul does not. Einstein once said, you can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created it. Get that? That's another great statement. You can't solve the problem with the same consciousness that created it. And most of our problems are not physical problems in our world here. They're produced on the level of mental consciousness. Somebody doesn't like our personality. Somebody gets in the way of what we're desiring. There's all kinds of ways, but it's mostly something having to do on the mental level of consciousness, the egoic level of consciousness, the sort of superficial self. Unfortunately, people with great power that are meant to lead people are working on this level all the time. I mean, why the hell don't we have a Speaker of the House after 10 days? Well, everybody's, it's an ego battle. They're not thinking about 365 people in the rest of the world. They're thinking about, well, gee, what's good for me? Yeah, so he says you can't solve a problem on the level it was created, level of consciousness. So we must move our awareness deeper than the reactive mind when this happens. That's the key. And luckily, there are a couple other levels of consciousness there. And so you could move from the mind down to what I call the cave of the heart. The heart's a different level of consciousness. It's consciousness that responds holistically, rather than just based on what's good for me, see. It has the whole always there. And then there's the body too. Okay. This is a little bit of soul vocabulary too. We have 3 levels of consciousness. Mental consciousness, okay. And then what we would call subconsciousness, which goes with the heart. I used to think sub was like a sub in basketball. You're a second string or something. It doesn't mean that. Subconsciousness means a deeper consciousness. And then there's a third level, which corresponds to the body, which is unconsciousness. Okay, because Thich Nhat Hanh, when he teaches, he calls that the store consciousness, where all manner of traumas, wounds, exiled parts of your personality, they live in that store consciousness, which is unconscious. In other words, we don't know what's down there. But a lot of times somebody thumps something in there, and then that's where these kind of bizarre reactions we have come from, because somebody thumped a wound that you don't even know exists. Somebody thumps a trauma, just something resembles it, and all of a sudden it hits you in that store consciousness, the unconscious, and you do something just totally out of character, and you don't know why you did it, because it was coming from the unconscious. You see, Freud brought us into that understanding of that we have more than just this me egoic consciousness. There's much deeper stuff. Now, luckily, we have the heart, which actually, we need more vocabulary of the heart. The heart actually, it includes all of it. That's why it's in the center of the body, you see. We've got the mind up on top, we have the belly, but the heart, actually, one of the definitions of the heart, it's the total intelligence of the soul. Because it knows what's going on up here, doesn't it's okay, and it also, in a sense, is a place where stuff can come up and actually to the heart and then become totally conscious. That's how we can actually, over time, allow these exiled parts of ourselves, allow these wounds to be healed, because we have a process where we go below the mind, which is defensive, reactionary, to the heart, which is, it resonates with everything, both above and below. It's sort of like the total consciousness, the whole package. And so that's why, when things fall apart, you have to actually go to your most comprehensive form of intelligence. This is the whole intelligence here. It has both the above and below. It can handle it, you see. There's some deep stuff when your country is attacked. There's some deep, we almost go unconscious. And you can do all kinds of things. War is basically, you think it, there are certain reasons you get in the army or whatever, and then when you actually get in battle, you're not even accessing even the upper two things. It's a battle to survival, and there's all kinds of unconscious things that happen. That's why atrocities happen in all wars. They talk about war crimes. Well, really, war is a crime. So it's sort of a redundancy department, isn't it? War crimes. When you get in war, crimes happen, inhuman things happen, because you're really coming. It's that survival instinct is down there, you see. Yeah. So we have these three kinds of consciousness. And then, the point is, how can you access the heart at these times? Well, I'll give you three questions that are key, and you can sit with any of these questions and actually go down to the heart with these questions. The first, and these are three terrific questions to use, and they're sort of in sequence here, but when you get to know this process, you could go to the question that you really want to sit with. So the first question that's really helpful is, what is this? When you're all shook up, oftentimes when things fall apart, you get shook, and you don't even have mental consciousness. It's just like the jar I have here, that it's clear, but that's not how it is. When things fall apart, it's all shook up. You can't see anything clearly. And it can be on a very minor level. When you come, you just in your life, you're just in a funk, but you don't really know. All of a sudden this mood comes over you or whatever, and it's a kind of funky, can't even put your finger on it. Well, you can sit with this question, what is this? And the way you see, I'm giving you Rinzai Zen training here, where you sit with these koans, these kind of mystery questions. Well, this is a great mystery question. What is this? What is this I'm feeling? Okay. And you don't know. So you sit with this. And the way you sit with this is you sit and you breathe in the question. What is this? Now, this is key. And you gently breathe out, don't know. This is how you deal with these kinds of questions. You breathe in, what is this? On the in breath and on the out breath, don't know. But the out breath is as important as the in breath, because when you breathe out, don't know, you give yourself a terrific latitude. You give yourself permission not to know. In other words, not to go upstairs to figure it out. This is not, the heart is not where you figure anything out. The heart is where it's deeper than that. And so when you breathe in, what is this? What is this I'm feeling? Don't know. Don't know. And you might do a whole set of meditations on that, or it might happen in the, in the first 5 minutes you're breathing in, and all of a sudden, oh, this is fear, or oh, this is anger, or oh, this is hatred, or whatever. Well, okay. So you got clear on it. But the way you do it is you breathe in the question, but you always breathe out don't know, which is ruling out going up here for it, you see. And then you're left with the heart, and the breath goes to the heart. Okay, so that's a good question when you're totally confused. Rather than sending an email or getting in your car and going shooting somebody out or whatever, when you really don't know what's going on, sit and breathe. And breathe in that question. What is this? Don't know. Now, a second great one, and especially if you say, oh shit, this is anger, or this is hatred, or this is jealousy, or this is pride, or whatever it is, when you actually know it, you could go to the second question. And maybe if you know, I got a boatload of jealousy. So then the second question, how do I practice with this? That's the second question. How do I practice with this? Don't know. So you can breathe that in. How do I practice with this jealousy? Don't know. And so we're still using the breath, you see, as a vehicle to take the question down to the heart. The don't know gives yourself, you can just sit with it. You don't have to come up with any answer. How do I practice with this jealousy? Well, one of the ways you can practice with it is this kind of breathing with the question. You're already doing it. And what that question gives you, it's a mysterious, powerful question. How do I practice with this? Built into that question is the belief that you can practice with this. You can resonate. In other words, with most troubling emotions like anger, jealousy, envy, or whatever, we either act out something into the world, we do something, we cuss somebody out, we do something irrational, we either act out or we repress. I'm more of a repressor. When the anger comes up, I push it back down out of consciousness. So both of those, this is the in-between. You're not acting out and you're not repressing. You're feeling the envy, you're feeling the jealousy, you're feeling the pride or the arrogance, you're feeling the blame, and then you're working with it. But at the heart level, you see, the heart level. But that gives you a lot of confidence. All right, I'll find out how to practice with this. You might learn a new practice, but the act of really breathing it in and breathing it out, what is this jealousy? Don't know. Well, you're already practicing with it. So you after a while, you feel you can practice with anything and respond to any situation rather than acting out or repressing. That's the main way we do it. Everybody does both, but we have our specialties. And then the third question, we're just about to our time. The third question is, and once you actually work this out, then you could say, all right, you've been sitting with anger here. And then the third thing is, well, where does this lead? That's the third question. Where does this lead? That's a locator question. You could do all these three questions in one sitting, you see. Yeah. And it goes bing, bing, bing. You don't know what you're feeling at all, and then you figure out, and then you sit with the feelings for a while, and then these feelings we feel are so destructive and can be if you act out of anger, if you act out of rage, if you act out of envy, you can do a lot of damage. But if you don't act out and you don't repress it, and you just are with it, letting the heart resonate with it in the don't know space, then you actually get a lead. Where does this lead? Where does this lead? Don't know. But you follow it until it does lead you to something that's a more productive. It's something that is not an acting out then it's a response, because sometimes you do have to take action. You call your congressman or senator. You sit down and have a talk with your husband or wife. You actually call up and say, no, I can't be on the board of directors anymore. Whatever it is that you've been trying to figure out what to do, you finally know, you get a lead. See? Yeah. So those 3 questions: what is this? How do I practice with this? Where does it lead? That kind of holy trinity of questions can lead you through that falling apart all through the emptiness to something new. You get a lead. You try something else. It's not a reaction. It's a response from the heart. So mindfulness of breathing, soothing yourself, reflecting on the mandala, realizing that where you are, and if you reflect on that mandala right now, you can tell you're at one place, you're somewhere on that circle all the time. It's not always noon, not always fullness. Sometimes it's sunset, sometimes it's midnight, sometimes it's dawn, but you're always somewhere on that. And there's not just 4 times, there's all the in between, you see. And so that you can find yourself. You're not lost. You're never lost anymore once you understand that mandala. You can find your place, and you know what's coming a little bit. Okay, it's not a 24-hour period. How long you're in these seasons, or more like seasons, it's closer than a 24-hour day. Yeah. Okay, I think that's good enough. We'll take a 15 minutes. We'll go to the 15 after the hour, where we'll be able to contemplate these in silence a little bit more. But for now, just take a break or write a little bit more, and I'll see you in about 15.